thank you for tuning in to Weird News Weekly, which will be coming up right after this. Stay tuned for urban legends to ghostly tales of the paranormal, because now it's time for
Message on the Wall.
This is Message on the Wall and Disney Haunts. The Disney theme parks was the dream of one man, Walter Elias Disney, born in Chicago on December the 5th, 1901. Young Walter always had an aptitude for drawing and was the obvious choice for making up cartoons for the school newspaper, mainly having a patriotic theme, as this was during the First World War. It was something he wanted to make a career from, but soon found the newspapers didn't want to buy his drawings. He may well have gone into a mundane job, or even his second choice of acting, but his brother Roy knew someone who put a word in for him at the Pressman Rubin Art Studio. They say it's not what you know but who you know, and Walt needed a kick up that first rung of the ladder. Though the job of creating advertisements for magazines, newspapers and posters was only temporary, when it came to an end, Walt had visions of setting up his own company. It was while working at the Kansas City Film Ad Company that he began working with cutouts, and that is where he got his interest in animation, where he didn't just draw something, but where he could make it come to life. The Disneyland Park in Anaheim, California was the first to open on July the 17th, 1955. Walt Disney had bought 160 acres of land in 1953 for this purpose, with construction beginning the following year. Over the years, as well as expanding, Disneyland has seen many refurbishments. From visiting other fun fairs, Walt had wanted something better, but it had to have a haunted house. The haunted mansion was under construction, with changes being made from its original format of being a walk-through to a buggy ride. Sadly, Walt Disney died before the ride was completed, which also put construction on hold. But when he said there would be ghosts from all over the world at his haunted mansion, I'm sure he didn't mean it literally, though the ghosts may have taken him up on the offer. One spirit that seems to have taken up residence at the haunted mansion was there even before the theme park. It was in the 1940s that a small plane crashed near the site where Disneyland now stands, the pilot being killed on impact. The spirit of a man with a cane is thought to be this pilot, who is often seen by staff after closing. Moving machinery and some people just don't mix. We see this on a daily basis with the traffic on the roads. And so it doesn't matter how much control Disney have over their rides, there will always be some daredevil willing to take a risk. This was the case with a young man on the Haunted Mansion ride who wanted to get a closer look at the Seance Circle exhibit. Getting from his seat, he thought he was stepping out onto the black painted platform, not realizing there was a gap between. He fell 15 feet to his death, breaking his neck. Disney also gets hundreds of requests each year asking to scatter ashes from the ride, which with health and safety issues, these requests are refused. However, it doesn't stop some from going ahead. When one woman lost her 7-year-old boy, she sprinkled his remains, causing the haunted mansion to be closed down while staff could clean up. It may have been the mother's wish more than her son's, because now the ghostly image of a boy has been seen crying by the exit. The Matterhorn ride is another that is said to be haunted. A 15-year-old boy died there in 1964, and 2 years later a 19-year-old was killed while sneaking onto the property by the monorail. The people mover that was once part of Tomorrowland, now gone with refurbishments, was also said to be haunted by a 17-year-old boy who died there. A second death came 13 years later. Staff regularly see children around the area of Tom Sawyer's Island. At one time swimming was allowed in the rivers of America, but with the health and hygiene required, and at least 2 deaths, it's no longer allowed. It was during a graduation party in 1973 that an 18-year-old boy died while swimming there, as swimming and alcohol certainly don't mix. 10 years later, another boy the same age died while trying to get to Tom Sawyer's Island on a raft. When it hit a rock, he fell in and drowned. Staff checking to make sure visitors were gone at closing time often see figures running around, but on closer inspection no one is there. And hauntings are not just at Disneyland, as Disney World also has its share of ghosts. During the construction of such enormous projects, no matter how careful, there always tends to be accidents, some fatal, that ensure the place to be haunted, and Disney is no exception. One worker named George, who was a welder, died when a beam fell on him. Staff manning the Pirates of the Caribbean ride now wish him a good morning over the tannoy, just to make sure things run smoothly, as the ride has, on occasion, closed down with no apparent reason. They also say a good night to him as well. One transparent figure has been seen walking along the streets of Disney World, and even seems to have been caught on security cameras set up around the theme park. When Disneyland became too small for Walt Disney's plans for more rides and thrills, a search went out for land where not only a theme park could be situated, but hotels and a campsite so visitors wouldn't need to leave and return the next day. The ideal site was found on the borders of Georgia and Florida. It was all kept very secret, with dummy companies being set up to buy the land in order to keep the prices down. Once 43 square miles was acquired, Disney announced the construction of a new theme park, and as he had predicted, land that had been purchased for $180 an acre increased in price to up to $80,000. Although Walt Disney had set out plans for new rides at the site, he never got to see them take shape, dying just 1 year after the purchase. It was his brother Roy that oversaw what was to be the biggest theme park in the world. It's at Disney World, at the experimental prototype community of tomorrow, better known as the Epcot, that a blonde-haired girl haunts, sometimes accompanied by a young boy. Another is at the Tower of Terror, seen by staff after closing hours. When they call out to him, he simply vanishes. When Walt Disney died on December the 15th, 1966, he was cremated and his ashes placed at the Forest Lawn Cemetery in Glendale. But being a legend, it just wouldn't be right if there wasn't an urban legend attached to him. Rumours soon sprang up that with Walt being so forward-thinking and being so intuitive, that he had been cryogenically frozen, awaiting the day when a cure, or in his case I suppose a set of new lungs and a heart, could be found. There are various stories of him being stored in this frozen state in a secret chamber beneath the Pirates of the Caribbean ride at Disneyland, to him being hidden beneath the statue of himself and Mickey Mouse. There are also stories that he haunts Disneyland, most often at what was once his apartment above the fire station on Main Street. Even though he was gone, the place was kept clean, and when a member of staff went to dust, on leaving she saw the lights were on. She had been sure she had turned them off, but returned, switched out the lights, and was again leaving when she saw they were on again. Although this time she knew for certain she had switched out the lights, she returned yet again, but only to hear a voice say, "Don't forget, I am still here." Now they leave the lights on just for him. Personally, I would like to think that Walt Disney wouldn't want to leave his beloved park, and strangely enough, at Disneyland's haunted mansion, there is a rumour that the urn contains cremated ashes of a human, but no one knows who it is. Could it be Walt Disney? You've been listening to Message on the Wall, brought to you by Paranormal X, your website for everything paranormal at www.paranormalx.yolasite.com.
The views and opinions of the host and guest of the following show may not be those of this radio network, its sponsors, or affiliates. User discretion is advised.
Welcome to
Weird News Weekly with
Diane Brown and
Norm Solbush.
welcome to another Weird News Weekly. I'm here in Nottingham and my co-host is over there in Ohio. Hi, Norm.
Hello. Yes, I'm in Ohio. It is springtime and I will enjoy it.
Oh, good.
But I hear we got a returning guest from a few years back today.
We certainly do, yes. Joining us from California, it's actor Geoff Gould.
Ooh.
Hello.
We're all on different time zones here.
Diane, it's got to be getting, what, the sun going down over there. You don't have sun over there in the UK, do you?
Yes, we do.
what, 1 or 2 days a year?
Something like that, yes.
I remember I mentioned sunlight. When my middle daughter, Courtney, was born, we had to have a genetic testing on her because she was born with a heart defect, but her cardiologist linked her to Williams syndrome. And it's traceable back to England heritage because it's in a lot of people, a lot of children that don't get out to the sun. Your body needs sunlight.
You mean sort of like rickets or something?
Well, if you Google or whatever thing you use, DuckDuckGo or whatever, the Williams syndrome, the kids have like a pixie face, and they're very unique when it comes to music. You know, some can even play pianos or instruments as good as anybody else, but they have other issues. You know, their IQs are usually in the 70s, but it's a syndrome. When they call it a syndrome, there's like a few key things that have to match up to call it the syndrome. My daughter was missing one link to that. So we disputed it and went and had a test in Cincinnati, Ohio on genetic makeup. And they confirmed that she did not have Williams syndrome. But then, you know, you start talking to the cardiologist again and he'll say, well, it really isn't that important that she doesn't have all those criteria to call it Williams syndrome. He said, I am going to treat her as if she did because that's how I view her. She's got everything but this. And, you know, everybody has their opinion. If you look at some of the pictures of Williams syndrome kids, my daughter doesn't look nearly as pixie-faced like that. But you could see some of the Williams syndrome things in her when you talk to her today in her 20s. They said the main thing about that was they said I had no heritage on the mother's side. My heritage is from England, but Williams syndrome seems to follow the mother, I guess. And she was not linked to any English at all. And that was one of the deciding factors that the Williams syndrome was ruled out. They said it's because a lot of the sunlight, you got to have sunlight. They see Williams syndrome like in some of the islands in Hawaii, where there's just a rain mist, you know, like volcano islands that way. Huh. And they don't see sun. You got to get them kids out of that misty, rainy, cool weather. You have to get them down off that volcano island to get to the sunlight every so often because your body has to have sunlight.
So is it the mother or father that would need the sunlight if it's a genetic thingy?
Well,
I mean,
it kind of follows the woman, is what I was told. I don't know. I'm not trying to sit here and say, my kid had this issue with the heart and possibly Williams syndrome because of her mother, but that's the way it's looking. Some families will have a bunch of kids, and a bunch of kids will have a similar problem. And it's got to be DNA. It's got to be some kind of a flaw within the cells of reproducing and stuff, which happens a lot. Heart defects, congenital heart defects, But, yeah, you got to have sunlight, Diane. Get out in the sun more often or get a sunlight in your room. You might feel better.
I have little fairy lights in my room.
We have sunlight quite often here in America compared to you guys.
yeah. Except like, Seattle.
Yeah, Washington State. I mean, I hear people up in them areas that it's kind of like UK-ish.
Yeah, I spent a weekend up in Portland years ago for a film festival, and it was just overcast when not raining.
And we seem to have similar weather to New York.
Well, when my family visited Italy and England in 1966, in London and Birmingham and Bournemouth, we wondered at first why everybody walked around carrying umbrellas on sunny mornings. And at about 12:30, the sky just went completely overcast. At 1 o'clock, it would pour rain for an hour, and then the clouds would all go away and be sunny again. And we literally called it the 1 o'clock cloud because every single day that happened.
Oh.
Wow.
Well, people still ask me sometimes about smog in London, but they don't get that anymore.
Really?
They've
They don't
cleaned
get
it
the
up.
smog?
No,
Oh.
no, it used to be a killer because of the toxins in the smog, and it used to kill people. They've cleaned London up a lot now.
What's that river that runs through London?
Thames.
Yep.
You do not go swimming in the Thames.
Right. I was told that was kind of polluted.
Very, very much so, yeah.
Why is that?
Because of everything that's been thrown in there.
Like bodies and stuff. Oh, well.
Well, the Tower of London's on the Thames, sat beside the Thames, and everything went out the window. And I mean everything.
Wow.
It's a tidal river. When the tide goes out, there's people going down there with metal detectors, and they're finding buttons and coins and belt buckles dating back to Tudor times.
Whoa.
That kind of sounds like we took a cruise on the Pacific side and we went to Acapulco. I mean, our ship, this was just, I'm saying about 6, 7, 8 years ago. They turned the big ship into this little, cove, and where we were going to dock, and then we would take these little boats, little orange boats up to the shore. But when we were starting to go into this cove, we went out on top of the deck and just looked out. The first thing that we noticed was a machine gun on a boat, like about an 18-foot boat with 3 soldiers on it. They actually had a machine gun on there, it was mounted in the boat. So that's kind of freaky. And then you look in the water, and there's all this garbage in the water, like briefcases and just objects. And once you got into this cove, it seemed to be cleaner. But that whole Pacific side in Mexico is kind of ucky. We always complain about our with this president deal coming up, and people talking about going green and being a little more considerate to Mother Nature. Travel some of these places around the world. There's no place in America that is as bad as Acapulco, Mexico. And we stopped at a place called Ixtapa and took a little boat ride to fish. Took one of those excursions. They just flush the toilet when you're done with their cruise. They just flush it out into the ocean. There's oil all over the ocean around Ixtapa. It smelled like oil refineries. And there's a skim of oil on the ocean, and you shake your head, and you just kind of feel terrible that here you are spending a couple $1,000s to take this cruise to areas that you wouldn't even ever see in America. So I don't know, man. We need to clean the whole planet up if we're going to go green, because what they pollute is killing the world, in my opinion, if that's the way you believe.
Well, that's how you get tuna in oil.
I mean, it was disgusting to see the Pacific side of Mexico. Just totally disgusting. My grandparents used to go to Acapulco back in the day when they did the cliff diving. They don't do that stuff anymore, man. It's just, you get shot up by drug dealers over there now. I mean, people just get killed over there. It's just unreal. I looked up our honeymoon spot was in Cancun, Mexico, because it was, I was posting something on Facebook for Throwback Thursday, and I Googled the Moon Palace in Cancun. There's been 3 murders there since me and Katie were there in 2002. One girl got raped and stabbed in a room. I'm thinking, Katie, we're not going back there for our anniversary in 20 years or anniversary. Hell with that.
Yeah, try somewhere different.
I just can't believe it. These places that we've been, you can't even go there anymore. I mean, some people still do, but you won't catch me in Mexico anytime soon.
Well, you've got to climb a wall, wouldn't you?
Climb a wall. No, I would have a pass. I'd be able to climb the ladder over the wall. I'd sign my name where it says Trump Wall. But I've been out to California. I'd rather just stick in America. I mean, I've been out to San Diego, which I like the best. San Francisco, I wasn't real thrilled about. But we landed in San Diego to get on our ship for that trip to Mexico. But San Diego's a pretty cool town. Right by Shelter Island, we stayed at a place called Humphrey's Half Moon. They have concerts there. They have very good food, and got to see some like shipbuilders along the coast there that build yachts, which is kind of neat. You never think about that stuff, but millionaires do still buy yachts.
Yeah, they're all in Monaco.
But yeah, you have some good stories today, I see.
Yes, we certainly do. We've got a few stories, so I will start with the first news story. Our parents knew. How many times have you been told not to sit too close to the TV, or that too much TV was bad for your eyes? Well, that now goes for computers and other handheld devices that are now part of our everyday lives. While it may come as no surprise that too much screen time is bad for us, there is an increasing development associated with it, as office workers suffer in epidemic proportions. It appears that a larger number of office workers are seeking help for pain and redness of their eyes, caused by hours of daily computer use. The main symptoms are dryness, tiredness, swelling, and even a gritty feeling in the eyes. David Ezra, a consultant ophthalmologist at Moorfields Eye Hospital in London, says that some people continue to go to work even though their eyes are uncomfortable and even red raw. However, blepharitis is a common condition where the edges of the eyes become swollen, and now due to eye screen illumination this is causing a decrease in the blink rate, which can be 60% less than average. Blinking is an important function for our eyes as it spreads tears over the ocular surface, and when we stop, the crucial tear film evaporates, causing stress to the cells which line the cornea, leading to inflammation and discomfort. Office workers also have the added problem of air conditioning, which encourages tear evaporation. Dr. Ezra advises people who like to read off a screen for pleasure to use Kindles, as they are better for the eyes due to the lower screen illumination. Also try to get in the habit of blinking more as you sit in front of your computer. Ensure you get up and away from your screen at regular intervals to give your eyes a break. Over-the-counter artificial eye drops can help ease the symptoms, but you should seek medical treatment if they persist.
Oh, I heard they make computer glasses. People have...
I mean, like the Google Glass thing?
No, just regular glasses that you should be wearing if you're on the computer a lot, which I do not have.
So they're like polarized or something?
I don't know what they are. If you go to a doctor here in Ohio, they'll tell you, well, you know, you're on the computer a lot. I don't know. Maybe it's a gimmick to sell you a different set of glasses. I don't know. But I think people use prescription glasses for work now for their... Maybe they are kind of tinted. I don't know.
before they had flat screens and things, they used to sell a thing that you put in front of your screen, didn't they?
Oh, I remember that. I had that on my Tandy 1000 I got from my dad's office back in, that was the first computer I ever owned. It actually had Word on it. I was thrilled to death. That's the only program it had on it. You know, I got Word. I can type a letter and I can print it on the matrix printer or whatever the hell that was.
My first computer was a $2001, easy price to remember, Epson. No, sorry, I had an Epson printer,
Right.
but the computer was an Ace Franklin 1000. It was an Apple II Plus clone. It had no hard drive. It had the big square floppy disks.
Yeah.
One booted it up. Another was a word processing program. Another was a spreadsheet, Lotus 123, and the other was made the modem work so you could get on CompuServe, because that was the only really online thing. AOL wasn't around yet, and neither was the internet, really. You just had a couple of online services. It was like CompuServe and The Source were the main online services at the time.
I started out with Netscape. That was like for the person that knew something about it. I was kind of self-taught on computers.
Yeah.
But your story reminds me of my wife's uncle. He was an insurance agent, and he retired like 20 years ago or 15 years ago. And he says, I got my computer up in my bedroom. He says, Norm, maybe you could go up there and, I can get some internet and we could get this thing online. He says, I just used to just play games on it. So I go up there, and it's got, like you say, the big floppy disk startup thing you had to put in first. And I'm thinking, I came out of there and I went downstairs. I says, no, I'm sorry, Bill, that's not going to go online. There's no way for it to go online. There was no access for online. People just don't understand it, He goes, well, how much you think that thing's worth? And I said, actually, I don't think it's worth a whole hell of a lot. But some people just don't get it, They just don't get it. He's the guy that went to his cell phone company, and said, I don't use it a lot. This was before they had it in the cars. He goes, I don't use it a lot. I don't want to buy unlimited minutes. That's when you had to buy your minutes. He says, I usually don't need 10 minutes. So they says, here's what we're going to do. They charged him $1 a minute, and he had 10 minutes for the month. He was the happiest guy on the block. So me and Katie would go, why don't we call him on his cell phone and use up his 9 minutes of his 10 minutes the first of every month and see what he does. He didn't get it. I said, but you're paying $1 a minute. He goes, but that's all I need. I said, well, we spend 3 cents a minute. And he goes, well, I don't need that many minutes.
No.
People just think differently. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. Here in California, there was a place I used to audition, and across the street, this is back when I had a car, or access to a car at least, and across the street there used to be this little parking lot. It was a little gravel parking lot, but it was free. You could just pull right into it. And 15 feet away was the street with metered parking. And people would be in the metered parking spots when they had a free parking lot right there. And all my girlfriend and I could figure was Californians didn't want to walk an extra 30 feet when they could pay money to park 30 feet closer to wherever they were going. So, yeah.
Well, it's just like this gas prices. Okay, now listen, people. All these newer cars, if you're lucky to have 12 or 13 gallons of gas, even if you're bone dry on the tank. Okay, so everybody, gas is 10 cents more. You got 10 gallons going in there. How much are you really saving? How much are you actually losing? I mean, people will drive 20 miles out of their way to save a dime a gallon. Nobody talks about the food prices. Nobody talks about other things in life that are skyrocketing. One thing is your cable TV and your internet service in any given home in America. Personally, my system with what I do with this radio show and other things is I spend right around $180 a month for TV and internet service. And it's a great system, a great service. I wouldn't give it up for the world, but it costs a lot of money. That's a lot of money in a year.
Yeah.
And then you got your cell phones. You got to get a plan. It's, people are spending between $30 and $60 a month on a cell phone. So add that to your little price tag in your home. I mean, we haven't bought food. We haven't paid the house payment. We haven't paid the car insurance. We haven't paid anything. And look at the money going out just in computer, TV, and cell phone.
I have Metro PCS, so it's $30 a month, 24/7 phone usage and internet.
Right, and it's just people worry about the 10 cents a gallon, guys. Guys, gasoline prices are going to vary for the rest of our lives. Leave it alone. That's all you hear about. Oh, my God, honey, I had to pay 10 cents more a gallon for gas. Well, how low were you? Well, I was on the 3/4 mark, but I just thought I'd top it off. So they bought 5 gallons.
They should come here and buy it.
I know, but it's just crazy. People don't think.
Yeah, but the thing is when you and I first started driving, gas was like 20 to 30 cents a gallon.
I remember 55 cents or 50 cents a gallon here, maybe 49.9 or something like that. Maybe growing up, I remembered Mom paying 35.9 per gallon, which was a lot of money back then. People don't realize it was no different than today. Mom started her job with 4 kids in 1960, or probably close to 70, for $1.75 an hour as a secretary. And then she ended up retiring 27 years later with buku money in a 401k because the company times it by 1.5% or 1.5 times. So Mom always put the maximum amount in a 401k, and Mom's living out west in Wyoming at one of these senior places, and she's having the time of her life with other seniors, and she's on her own. And that $1.75 an hour job is the only reason she's there with the 401k she saved over 27 years. And she's doing pretty well for an 80-some-year-old woman.
Yeah, I was semi-joking online on Twitter that here I am in California, in Los Angeles, in Hollywood as an actor, and my mother, as well as my brother, are getting more SAG and after work in New York City than I've been getting out here. And my mother, this Memorial Day, I'm pretty sure is her 90th birthday.
Wow.
And she's still working. And the thing is, she forgets to tell me when she's doing stuff. So I'll be watching like a favorite sitcom, and all of a sudden there's Mom. I'm like, oh God.
That must be pretty wild when that happens.
Yeah. Well, she was on a recent episode of Broad City, and I'm like, okay, that's probably the last show I'd expect to see Mom. But a lot of times, like I was watching an episode of Inside Amy Schumer, and they had this very funny bit with a lot of older people, and I'm thinking, man, Mom should have been in this sketch, and all of a sudden there's Mom. I'm like, man.
Yeah, that's kind of funny.
It used to be Films Hollywood, Theatre New York.
Yeah, there's hardly any good theater in L.A. There is, but the problem is it's self-funded. I grew up on a community theater stage in New Jersey called the Studio Players of Upper Montclair, New Jersey, and they're still there. They were founded in 1937, and it's a wonderful, wonderful group. And I've done countless plays and a lot of children's theater for children audiences, and which is a much more stylized form of acting, and I had a lot of fun with it because you could be a little more flexible with certain things. You could be a little more, not risque, but little things that kids clearly won't get, but sometimes the parents will be amused to keep them from wanting to, pull their own heads off by watching, otherwise dreary little plays. And my standard operating procedure was audition for a play and get the role I wanted or something very similar. If they said, I see you better playing this role, I'm like, oh, yeah, no problem. And if I wasn't doing something, if there wasn't a role on stage, then I'd design the sound and I'd run tech. That was my way all through the year. And then I come out to California, and what few groups I could find, they were like monthly dues of paying $60 or more with the concept of, yeah, you can, pay for like 6 months and then maybe we'll let you run props. I'm like, no, that's not how it works. I was fortunate to get an agent really quickly, and I would go out on auditions, and I would go on callbacks, and so this was just normal for me. And I wasn't getting booked right away. I got booked rather quickly, but I mentioned to an actor friend, mentioned callbacks, and they said, "Wait a minute, what's your callback ratio?" I said, "I don't know, about 8 or 9 out of 11 or 12." And she just flipped out, saying that her acting coach said that if you got 1 or 2 out of 10, you were doing better than 85% of your competition. And all I could say was, well, no one told me it was supposed to be hard. Because to me, it was just natural. I'm like, yeah, callback, yeah, of course. It never occurred to me that I wouldn't.
Is it? Well, I suppose you fitted the parts.
Yeah, yeah.
If you go and audition for everything going, your callback rate would be lower.
Probably, but like I say, I went to a lot of auditions, and most of those were all got callbacks.
Did you see the story? I forget where I saw it. I don't know if it was 60 Minutes. China has got a thing similar to Hollywood. Did you see that show?
I don't know that one.
They've created a Hollywood scenario in China to where people are stars at the same level for their country as in Hollywood.
Now, it's the same as Bollywood, isn't it?
Well, it's just crazy because they go the whole 9 yards, on these award shows now, and there's a couple Chinese actresses that are making it big over there. I don't know if it's just an illusion for the people or
It's to stop them leaving.
I mean, I don't know. Like, maybe you can grow up in China and become one of these people. I don't know. But it's just crazy.
I need to remind my agent that, I have a valid passport, because she was trying to get me to get new photos up, which I have done. And she was saying, well, they send American actors to Japan and do commercials. I'm like, I'm all for that, because they'd be paying for the trip, the lodging, the food, and such. And I'd be in Japan, and my friend Kat, who's the co-host of the Paranormal View I co-host, she would be able to tell me, where to go investigate ghosty stuff. So, I mean, I know I'd be way too far away to go to Mount Fuji and go to the Suicide Forest, which I would love to visit, but...
Yeah, there's plenty of places out there that's paranormal in Japan. And I know that a lot of producers in America are putting money into Chinese films as well.
Yeah.
Because my agent is looking for more films that would be suitable for a Chinese audience.
Huh. Okay, what story you got coming up, Diane? You got some crazy ones here today.
I have. I think this is one of our weirdest news stories, as most of us may think of death and how we want our remains to be treated when our time comes, but rarely do we think about how it would feel. But someone did. And now there is an attraction in Shanghai that is offering people a chance to experience death and rebirth. And people are paying to lie down and be placed in a mock cremation chamber where virtual flames surround them. Certainly not one for the faint-hearted, but then they make their way out through a small circular hole to simulate rebirth. The organisers say the attraction is about educating people on life, so as one approaches the moment just before they face death, they don't have to think about these problems constantly. And if you don't fancy being placed in an urn, there is a growing trend of trying out a coffin, which are probably more comfortable for the dead than the living. But people queued up to give it a try in China, where funeral parlours had hundreds of people lining up to be enclosed in a coffin for several minutes, with the lid on it, that is. They even had stand-in relatives and fake mourners to make the situation more realistic, as mock funerals were held across China in aid to help people appreciate life, being said to also warn of the dangers of drink driving and ward off suicidal thoughts. Those taking part apparently emerged from the coffin reborn with a new lease of life. though many young people appeared to be there just to take a selfie in a coffin. And one man even staged his own funeral just to see how many would turn up.
You know what? You're not going to know how many are there. That's just my opinion. Maybe people have different thoughts about that, but you know what? Can you imagine if you could hear it, though? Oh, Norm, he was such a great human being. You know, and you hear these people, and you can sit there and you catch the lies, because there'll be some people lying at your own funeral. You know, I did not do that.
If you want them to say nice things, write your own eulogy.
Well, the coffins, I mean, yeah, they're almost designed to be comfy. I'm like, why? I mean, I did a student film where my character was buried alive, but it was just a plain pine box kind of a thing, because it was set in the Old West.
Yes, they did. Stick them in anything. They have some nice coffins, though, in America. I wish they'd bring them here.
Yeah.
What you do is you buy your coffin, and you can even have a double one, and you use it while you're alive. You can use it for entertainment system, bookshelves. There's one that's a coffee table, so you can keep your magazines in it. Then when you die, they line it out with the silk and everything, and you get placed and buried in it.
Well, what people got to realize, I'm sorry, but when you die, you're not going to know you died. Think about it, people. When you go to bed at night and you have one of those deep sleeps, that's exactly how you're going to be when you die. You're not going to wake up. You're dead. The people around you, your wife, your loved ones, are going to be terrified. They find your body in bed, you're dead. And the funeral is just for the living. It's not about the dead guy or the dead woman. They don't give a shit about you. You're dead. It's about the people that are crying at your funeral that can't move on because you're dead. I mean, this is all mental. You know, we could all have our PhDs in psychiatric stuff. We could lay somebody down and, come on, tell us what you feel, blah, blah, blah. Please send a check for $29 to me next week. I mean, I don't like funerals. I don't even like my own family's funerals. I think it's fake when you start talking about somebody who they really weren't. You know, that person was an evil asshole when he's alive. You know, here we are, gonna cry. Oh my God, he was such a great father. Yeah, he beat the out of me.
Yeah, but the people who aren't jerks, it can be a lot of closure, and it sometimes becomes an inadvertent reunion for family members you haven't seen in a long time that are brought together because of the loss or at least the death of someone in the family.
Right. I think the one funeral I went to was a relationship with my stepfather, his sister's husband that died, and I went to that, and this drunk guy came in. He wasn't dressed properly, but I paid attention to this guy when he walked in, and people didn't treat him real well because they didn't know who he was. They thought he was at the wrong funeral. And he walked in there, and he just looked at everybody and said, none of you people understand and know that man in that casket like I did. And find out after he left, he was a drinking buddy of his for 20 years in a local tavern. And he would go in and talk to this guy. They were best friends in the bar. And he would talk to him about his life, talk to him about the hardships in his life, the good things in his life, and just a friend in a bar. And the family didn't know that side of him. A lot of the people never even knew he hung out at the bar.
Huh.
So it was just kind of an interesting thing that struck me as a young kid. I was probably 18 years old, 17, 18 years old. And I thought, you know, I almost had compassion for that guy that ran out of that funeral that day because he was very hurt by it, his death. Probably more hurt than some of the family members because it was his best friend who talked to him at his lowest times and his happiest times. And they shared a lot of things. Those are the people that miss people when they die. Just because you're blood relation to anybody doesn't give you a free pass to sit there and say, oh, poor Norman, his father died. You know, why would somebody be upset over my father dying and I've got no dad now when I didn't like the guy? I mean, think about that, you know. Deaths are funny, how we treat it in the world.
Well, also, what I find interesting is that most people will find less sadness in a family member dying than a pet.
Yeah, I agree with that. I was devastated when I lost my dog.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I'm going to be devastated when I lose Hank. You know, you got to say to yourself, well, the dog's only going to live to be lucky if you get 16 years out of these dogs before they start really getting into a lot of pain or don't get hit by a car or have other issues. A lot of these dogs are getting cancer in their gums, tumors. I see that a lot. And I think that's a lot of that is chemicals in the grass, people that spray that need their green grass, you know. It's almost like America's like this fake thing. Why is it so important that on the first sunny day in Ohio that somebody waters their grass when we just had 8 inches of snow last Saturday melt? I don't understand people.
I have a friend who waters his lawn on rainy days.
What is so important about grass, people? I wish I had no grass because I don't like to mow it.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, they're taking grass out and they're putting in these slabs. It looks awful.
Ew.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, there's a kind of grass that we had back in my childhood home. This one little section of grass in the lawn that was this weird kind of non-growing grass. So the grass would grow all around this one little patch. And it was this one style of grass. And I'm like, why couldn't all of it be like this? You know, where it just, you know, when the rain comes, the rain comes. If the rain doesn't come, hooray. But, and it was perfectly thriving with or without water. And it just didn't grow. It was nice and green. It was a good regular lawn height, you know, a few inches, and it would just lay there. I'm like, okay, why couldn't the rest of the lawn be this?
If I was voted in president tomorrow and people are worried about all this green stuff and all this wind energy and all this, we got to shut the coal mines down, blah, blah, blah. Okay. First thing that I would do as president, I'd ban all gasoline-powered lawnmowers. Period. Get rid of them. Can you imagine the air difference in this country if you got rid of just lawnmowers?
I'd certainly
Garden
see the revolution
tractors.
coming. But
Well, I'm just saying, we got to buy battery-operated cars for $40,000. We all got to go, we'll never own one of those cars. You'll just probably lease them or rent them. And after a while, you won't even want a car, because the insurance will probably kill you. So you ask yourselves, that's another thing. Why does everybody, if you got a family of a husband and wife and 4 kids, why is it that when their 4 kids become 17 years old or 15 years old, everybody needs a car? Why do we got 7 cars now? Why would you have 5 kids' cars in the drive, plus mother needs a car, plus dad needs a car? So now we got 7 cars in one driveway.
it also depends on where. I mean, where I grew up, yes, you could take a bus to the city, but it was a hell of a walk to where the bus left. And now I'm in LA, and I grew up right near New York, so taking public transit was no big deal. So I haven't had a car in 10 years, over 10 years, and people are like, how do you get around? It's LA. I'm like, I know the bus routes. And now there are apps that tell you when the bus is coming and how to get from one place to another and all that stuff.
Right, right. So I think it's just like a learned behavior. Everybody believes, oh my God, I hear these mothers post this on Facebook. Oh my God, my son is 15. He's got his driver's permit. Oh my God, now my husband has to work overtime to buy him a car. Stop right there, people. Why do we got to buy the kid a car? You go to the high school in Perrysburg, Ohio. We got Beamers in there. We got $60,000 vehicles in there that these kids that are 17 years old that are driving to school.
Have them get a flipping paper route while they're growing up, and they can save for their own darn car. Get a used one for, a jalopy for a few $100s.
I bought a 69 Chevy Impala 4-door for $300. My first car was that.
Well, when I had a girlfriend who essentially reneged on certain promises she had made early in the relationship.
Obligations, you mean?
No, well, she's the one that got me to come out to California, and she promised that I would have access to her car for auditions and shoots and such. And she had friends in L.A., and she allowed them to sway her to stop letting me have access to the car, despite that being, something she swore would never happen. So the universe, thankfully, likes me to an extent. And where I was, my day job, a friend of mine, her dad owned a garage in Glendale, and she said, well, I know he's got like this old broken down car that works, but it may be, only $300 or $400. And I get over there, and sure enough, it was a piece of junk. But it was only a few $100s, so I gave it to him, and it lasted about maybe 2.5 years before it gave up the ghost. But it's the old joke, whoever steals my car steals trash. No car thief looking at this would ever think, wow, I got to have this. No, they look at it like, oh, I pity the poor guy. And I had no problem with that because it was functional transport, and it looked horrible, so nobody would want to steal it or break into it.
So you left the keys in the car, did you?
I didn't need keys. The ignition system was so broken down that it was dangling out by its wires, and you had to turn it with a screwdriver. So anybody could steal this thing.
It was probably a stolen car.
No, it was all legit, but
Probably had been stolen when it looked better.
So now, Jeffrey, you'd be that guy. You know that movie? Remember that movie where that guy got all off and started having a meltdown in the city? Remember when he had a baseball bat? I forget what the name of that show was.
A whole lot of movies like that. You mean like Network?
Oh, no, this was before that. I forget who played that part, but it was a guy that started out at a carryout or something, and he just exploded because they didn't have change for a $50 bill or something. And he had a bad day. He was in a suit and tie. He ended up walking through town, just terrorizing the town.
Oh, you're talking about Michael Douglas.
I think so. Yeah, that was the show.
Which movie?
Yeah, he got stuck in a traffic jam and he walked away from his car. Can't remember.
That's right. He left the car.
I don't know which film that is.
It was a big movie. I can't remember what it is.
I'll have to Google it. But it was a very intense movie. And that kind of just something else popped in my mind when I thought about that. Remember the one with the phone booth, where the whole show was about this guy in a phone booth?
The one with not Jack Bauer, of course, Kiefer Sutherland on the phone?
Yeah, remember that?
It was,
No, it was the Irish bloke, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Colin
Firth.
No, not Colin Firth.
No.
It was the other guy.
Wasn't it about treating people right or something?
Well, no, it's just about a sniper guy. Hang on, my online browser is being annoying, so I can't look up the links.
Colin Farrell.
Farrell, yeah. I was trying to say Farrell, and that just seemed wrong in my head. But yeah, that was a cute film. I didn't have a problem with it.
That's kind of neat.
But it was funny because all I could think of is, how does anyone not know that's Kiefer Sutherland's voice?
Yeah.
And certainly laugh. It was apparently somebody else's voice, and then they replaced it with Kiefer.
Wow. I think when I watched that movie, I told my wife, I said, you know what? That guy probably just sat at home on a microphone and just did his whole he didn't even have to be there.
Well, I don't remember if they ADR'd his voice or if he was on set, because there are times that'll happen. There will be actors, and I've done this, where you're not on camera and you don't have to be there, and the person can be looking at, like, you want to be looking right here, and they'll put like a tennis ball or a piece of tape, something. But there are actors who will go in and say, no, I'll be their sideline, and you can act right off them, because then you get a much more different performance than if they're looking at a tennis ball.
Right.
The season finale of The Walking Dead, you had a character who was doing this big monologue, and it's all just looking at him from the point of view of the people he's essentially terrorizing. And apparently all of those principal actors were still there and at 110% acting so that he could play off them properly.
Right. Geez, I didn't... Michael Douglas played in Cuckoo's Nest?
What? Where was he in Cuckoo's Nest?
I don't know. It's
That's a Jack
1975. It
Nicholson.
says One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest was Michael
Was it
Douglas.
The Michael Douglas film you're talking about is Falling Down.
Yeah, Falling Down.
Oh, I've heard of that. Yeah, I didn't see it. But I
Yeah,
know.
that's it. That's it. 1993. Basic Instincts about that time. Flatliners. That was a great show. Flatliners. That to me was a great show when they would die and come back, and then they'd have that visions.
Yeah, I know of the Flatliners, but I actually didn't see it. And that's a Kiefer Sutherland movie too.
So he played in China Syndrome, Coma. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Who did he play in that?
Was he a doctor? I don't remember him being one of the patients.
No.
Unless he was early in the film, maybe sending Jack Nicholson in or something. I don't know.
I have no idea. Is he all right? Is he still alive?
Yeah, he was just in Ant-Man.
I haven't seen a good movie. There's a new movie called Criminal that's out that I'd like to go see.
Yeah, that looks interesting. I want to see that. But I love the Marvel movies. So Ant-Man was very, very good. Almost on a part of Guardians of the Galaxy, which was brilliant. What was really cool about Ant-Man, and you should see it just for this, is they show him present day, but in the beginning of the film, it's set like 20 or 30 years earlier, and they de-age him to the point that when he was in the 1990s. All done, I'm sure, through CGI, but it's brilliant because it's sort of like the beginning of the second X-Men movie where they de-aged Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart back to their 1980-looking days.
Yeah, it's amazing what they can do. I'm going to have to stop you there because it looks like we're running out of time, and what I'll do is we'll carry on talking and we'll play that next week because we've still got a news story in the Stupid Celebrity of the Week. So, Geoff, all you have to do is tell people where they can find you.
You can find me on Twitter at RealBadger, RealBadger. I'm on Facebook. My name is spelled Jeffrey, Geoffrey .Gould. It's like Jeffrey Rush. And theparanormalview.com.
There you go. That's how to find Jeffrey Gould. Thank you for tuning in this week. Don't forget to tune in next week. We will be back with Jeffrey Gould in part 2. Take care till then.
Chicago, here comes the fire, yeah. So go red, go, yeah. The fire, oh the fire, will burn this whole place down. Fire. Na 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 na